Okay, we're live. So this is the 13th, I think. Well, won't be unlucky because we've got Sonny Rivera. Yeah, a data superhero, ThoughtSpot evangelist. So without further ado, let's add the main man. Hey, Sonny, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Chris? Great to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. And let me just check, make sure my settings are on the right audio.
I hear you great.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, great to have you on here. And always like to start with intro of how I've got to meet. And I think it was a lot about the bring back data modeling. I think there was a bit of a hashtag that we all joined forces on. Yeah, obviously been working with ThoughtSpot, New Cindy. We end up on some shows together, I think, for ThoughtSpot. And then last month we sort of called up face to face. I think we saw a big day. Sorry, at the Snowflake Summit as well. But you got to appear on a panel which we can chat about. Yeah, good to hear that John's saying no mic problems today. Yeah, we had a bit of problem before. So yeah, shout out to Val and John who's just joined as well.
Awesome.
So let's intro yourself. I mean, yeah, what a bit of background to people that don't know you. Yeah, and a bit about your journey maybe as well.
Okay. So I'll take off the data daddy hat. I just thought people would like that. My name's Sonny Rivera. I am ThoughtSpot's product evangelist or analytics evangelist. I've been in this space for, God, Chris, I hate to say it, like 25 plus years, a long time. You know, building platforms on premises, then moving them to the cloud and decommissioning them on premises, and building out things like the modern data stack at companies like AAA or Ally Financial. So I've done a lot of work in building and monetizing data, building data products not data mesh products, data products that we actually monetize. We realized real value from those to the tune of about 28 million in AAR. So built a lot of data products, done a lot of data modeling, and seen the value that brings to organizations and to data products. And then about 2 years ago, ThoughtSpot said, why don't you come over here and help us and talk about data and provide some thought leadership around data and analytics in this space. So here I am.
Yeah, sounds like with the same as myself, the years and battle scars of all of the projects we've done before, and that different piece of the puzzle that come perfect really for taking to ThoughtSpot and taking that product mentality and providing the value of data accessibility, I suppose, isn't it? Hence the title. So we're taking questions. So anyone wants to ask any questions, we'll stop and we'll take them as well. But we've got 4 areas, well actually 5 areas, and we'll probably we've got some extra ones based on the outputs of the panel that you were kindly on when we were at Big Data London. And if we can't start a ThoughtSpot discussion without why dashboards are dead. I mean, yeah, we can't avoid that one. So yeah, so what's your view on that? Is it, yeah, what's your opinion of that?
Well, I think, first of all, it's a great marketing slogan, right? I mean, dashboards are dead. We have a billboard, over the 101 in California. Dashboards are dead. And I think it's interesting because, well, first of all, let me say in this space, in the data space, is anything dead, right? It really may be more like they're zombies. We don't get rid of anything in this space. People, for God's sakes, are still using, Cognos or something.
That's where I started.
See?
In the 90s, yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, yeah, you may have a point then.
So what I think what we mean by dashboards are dead is 2 things. One, static dashboards just aren't enough anymore. People want to interact. And when you you look at a dashboard and you see something, you probably have a question. And the inability to keep diving and asking that next question, that's why dashboards are dead. And then the other point I would say is, a lot of companies are extracting data and putting it into, whether they're putting it into cubes or they're, putting it into just a single table so they can look at it, but it's not live. It's not the most recent data. We had to suck it off and put it somewhere else. And we run it over the weekend so we can have it on Monday, and then we do it again, right? And so the idea that, hey, let's get to insights quickly on the latest data is the other reason dashboards are dead.
Yeah, I like that. And I do agree. And if you say anything's dead, it gets people's attention. And it did need people's attention to maybe review and rethink how we've done things before. And while we partner with ThoughtSpot at the beginning, and I think we've done some articles about this, is it, we're a consultancy company, but our end game is to get the best for our clients. So we're not going to go and say, okay, let's go and put some product there. You have to have a report developer in there, perform this piece, another jigsaw piece of the puzzle to the ultimate goal of getting business outcomes, so getting data to them. We're living in this more agile way now. The quicker we can get the business engaged, we get feedback, the quicker we're going to get to the associated value. So and I think
can I add to that, Chris? I think one thing is that we see too, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier. One thing that is killing dashboards is self-service analytics, right? To your point, you were like, hey, you need this BI developer. That whole cycle of, the business user running a frontline business coming to you and saying, hey, data team, can you answer this question for me? They build you a dashboard, get you the answer, only to come back and say, okay, now can you slice it these 3 different ways? And you repeat, right? And you do that over and over again. Now with self-service analytics, as it's beginning to become a reality that companies and users, business users, non-technical users feel like, hey, I know how to ask questions for the business that I'm running. I know what I'm looking for. Just enable me to get it. So
yeah, totally. I think there was a post that someone did. They say it's like saying a newspaper's dead, and then I piped in and gave my view on it as well. As that, if you think of ThoughtSpot, it's still a newspaper, but just the front page has been visualized for you. And as soon as you actually want to go and find out more, or read more, find out more, consume more, then that becomes live. It becomes a digital newspaper because it's providing the information based on your interest in certain areas. And if you can provide that self-serve, because questions generate questions. As soon as you've answered one, the answer will generate another thought for you, which may take you a different direction. So to get that ability in the hands of the people that actually run the business, it's only going to help. So I totally agree with the marketing spin, but I think what marketing does, it gets people to review and rethink things, and I think that's a good outcome from it as well.
Well, you do need a bit of a catchy title, right? I mean, there's so much content out there today. You need a little bit of something to get someone's attention, but it does make someone think, and it's thought provoking. And to your point, if you can provide something that's thought provoking, now you're tapping into that inner dialogue they're having with themselves already. Like, is there a better way to do this? I ask myself that all the time. Is there a better way to do this? And sometimes there is.
Exactly. Does the mean data streets need to be this mean? In case you to rethink it, let's say how to make the brilliant data streets, which hopefully one day we'll achieve.
You have messed up my psyche, because every time I walk down the streets of London, I'm going to a data meetup and I pass by the Flight Club. Right?
Yeah.
Starts every time. I'm like, Fight Club. I'm on the right direction. Flight Club or Fight Club.
Exactly. Yeah. So in fact, we probably need to do one of the meetups there, maybe one time, a mean data Flight Club meeting. But for anyone out there, Flight Club is a place you play darts, which is traditionally, I think, very much a British pub sport, well, turned into a sport where you throw arrows or little. Anyway, I suppose we get back on target, pardon the pun, and we can talk about the next topic. So I think we touched on this really as well. And so how do we increase that speed to insight and associated value? And so I think some of the things we touched on there address that. But how would you How would you see the future of how we can make that even better?
Yeah, and so you're talking about speed to value. I think part of the thing is it's being able to ask that question, right? To get some insight, to take an action that results in value. And I do think it's important to note the difference between a business value or a benefit versus what is value creation, right? And so I would separate those like, hey, Chris is able to now ask questions of his own. He can get the insights that he's looking for, and it's made his process more efficient. That's a real benefit, right?
Yeah.
But when Chris can turn that into real bottom line dollars, meaning I generated more revenue, right? I have a hard value creation. That means converting that insight and that action into money. That is really value creation. I would separate the two things, right? So
I
we
think
don't
it's spot on. Yeah.
get confused.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the discussion we're having with Matt about business value, and we refer to that as the business value machine. It's what giving you the capabilities to achieve the business value channels, which, as you said, the things that actually are monetizing it, either from a actual selling the data, using it for optimization, or to creating other features in a wrap capability that makes your product better, or you can charge more for it. So yeah, you're right. It's the machine that makes the money is what we're the modern data stack. To keep modern, that's how we do it. We need to make sure that it's becoming more efficient. It's getting a more efficient engine that is providing the business what it needs, based on the track it's on. If you want to go into a race car analogy.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about things like just I'll go back to examples of business value, having better pipelines that are more streamlined, a more streamlined supply chain, or greater customer satisfaction, higher NPSs. These are all business values, but sometimes they're hard to quantify as value creation.
Yep.
So on the other side, the value creation, think the ultimate goal is to bring dollars to the bottom line. And so that's where the value creation is. And there's a couple of ways you can do this, right? If you think about your data, you can look at your data and say, can I make it better, right? Can I improve my data? And that gives me the insights that provide either monetization or some other value. Can I embed it? Can I put this in my product? Can I use this data, maybe coupled with industry data, and put that in my product? That's a way to do it as well. I mean, then there's outright just selling the data, right? Hey, can I aggregate it? Can I anonymize it, or do something maybe where it's benchmark data, it's industry data, or can I sell, customers' data back to them, right? With enhancements about what's happening in the marketplace. So I would think about, can I improve my data, right? Can I embed the data, and can I actually, make a cash transaction with data?
Yeah, and I think it's a great way of framing it and thinking of it. And I think another thing, I think, again, Matt just I think Matt came up with this one, was data is the electricity. It's when you plug your lamp into it, your TV into it, it becomes that product. So providing that art of the possible and making it very accessible. Go back to our point as well, is we want to provide that data, to embed it where it's needed, that provides that associated business value. And we've all debated what that is, and I think we all agree it's what improves your company performance. Your strategy should dictate what is your performance, or what you're being performed against. So, which I think was something we talked about just before. And shall we go on to that topic about strategy alignment? Because there's many faceted strategies in this world we live now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump into that. I'm not sure where you want me to jump off here. If you had a specific question, or if you just want me to start rambling on.
I think just go full rant mode. I mean, I think you reeled off about 5 different strategies, and I think it'd be great to probably reel off those terms and then see how we think they relate together.
Yeah. So when I think about this, it all, we've said this so many times, it starts with the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the business strategy, right? And so if you have business strategy, and then your company may have a digital strategy, so which aligns to that business strategy. Notice I didn't say the digital strategy came first, right?
Yes,
The business
exactly.
strategy is at the top of the funnel, right? The thing that comes first. And then there's that digital strategy, like, how are we going to do this in a digital world? Do we want to get to those next best actions? Do I want automated next best offers, next best actions? How do I want to do this from a digital strategy perspective? And then we start thinking about our data strategy as a result of that digital strategy. And now that we have this data strategy of whether how I'm collecting it, storing it, using it to, improve my business and drive those values, then I can start thinking about a real monetization strategy, right? And it's funny, I wouldn't be surprised, right, if you see executives lining up to each one of these areas, right? We have business strategies. Well, CEOs, CFOs, or COOs are all aligned on the business strategy. We have data strategies, and digital strategies. CDAOs or CDOs, CDAOs are aligning around that piece. I don't know who's aligning around monetization strategies.
So I think I'm thinking out loud here as well, and linked to, I think one of the topics that came up on the panel, when it was the role of the CDO, and we've just listed about 4 different strategies there, and I think you're right in calling out there's a hierarchy between them all. I think the only one that's really clear, of which trumps it, is the business one. I think if you ask all the different other C-suite, they'd all want to hang their own things off the business strategy. The digital was going to want to hang his off the business strategy, but then there'll be competing forces between those two ones. If you look at the org structure, who do those people report to?
Right.
And predominantly the CDO hasn't had that seat at the top table, which I think needs to change a bit. And I think you're onto something here of it's a strategy of strategies. It's like, okay, right, we've got all these things. How are we going to link this all together? And who's coordinating and leading that? Because the CEO, he's normally just done at the beginning. He's done his vision statement. He's submitted to the board, the shareholders of the company, what they're planning on achieving. He's normally now delegating all of the pieces for the company to achieve that, and maybe overseeing it. But I don't know how hands-on you'd find, especially in large organizations, for someone to check and validate how they're performing against that business strategy.
I think a couple of things that jump to my mind is a recent conversation that we had with a CDAO. And in her role, the CEO said, look, you are the head of our digital and our data strategy. I need you at the table, proactively pulling them. I need you at the table. So I need you reporting directly to me, and we need to have you sitting at the table, just like every other line of business. So I thought that was interesting. I also think, obviously, Cindy House, and we did some predictions, for 2023. And one of those was that CDOs and CDAOs make a bid for the CEO role, right? And so I think we're seeing a little bit of that, but would love to see more of it where data strategies and digital strategies end up being the business strategy, right?
I think you're right. I think most companies, if they've been saying they're digital first for a while, now it's data first, which drives the digital. It combined, and I think that operational world and the data world, with all the different ops, DevOps, and data ops becoming more closer aligned. The closer aligned of being able to share data between applications, becoming easier and easier. So the same teams are working much closer together, and which is great. Rather than those days of just chuck it down, it's the data team's problem. It's now the business's problem.
Right.
I do think that the whole C-suite needs a bit of a revamp, and having that C person that can actually sell, and John's and a product focus as well. I think I think his one we talked about should be sort of CDPO or something, Chief Data Product Officer, but we're thinking it might sound like a Star Wars character. But I think John, I'll just put it out there, just shout out to John. Yeah, spot on. I think that product focus. I think if that CDO is thinking more with a business mindset and less technical, they've already got that product mindset. And I think your background, I think I said this the other day, is the more people I chat to in this world, there's more people that have just come from that product world. So bringing that product mentality into the data department, and it be seeing as a function now rather than a cross-functional capability sat below it. And I've drawn many architecture diagrams like that. It becomes a pillar of your organization. I think I've talked about this before. Everyone knows what HR does. Everyone knows what your finance team does. You know what marketing does, the sales. If you ask what data teams do, the normal response will be, they write reports and run extracts for us, for most people in the business. And if that starts changing, that your data department provides you the art of the possible for delivering business outcomes or increasing your business performance, they'll all come to you, and rather than Mohammed coming to the mountain will come to Mohammed. You'll create that you'll create that FOMO environment where people want to work with you and want you to provide the service that they see all the other departments doing. They want to sell it. Yeah, you want to help monetize it. Speak to this department.
Yeah, and so I'm going to touch on John's comment here, and I agree with him. I'm going to touch on his comment just a little bit.
Yeah.
One, when I've talked to CDOs, and one of them said to me, look, I'm the CDO. We have data products. I'm focused on those. I am not the chief integration officer. Mm-hmm. So you need to make my life easier, right? With this modern data stack that you've got, and we've got 5 different components. I don't need to be, running and dealing with the integration efforts between each one of these products and how robust they are every day. That's not what I'm here for. Yep. I'm here to leverage data to drive value, business value, and real value creation within my organization. So you can see CDOs doing what John is saying, is focused on what are those data products, whether it's a internal product or an external product, and how do we use that data? So
I think as data modeling has become, much more talked about, from recent activities, product mentality is coming much more talked about. So, I think raising its awareness on the community and talking about it, and that spreading to the business, and as all sharing the reason, rationale for it, becomes an easier conversation within an organization. So I've got a question from Ian here. So it's a bit earlier. So would you say his thoughts were just for self-service analytic users, or would data scientists get value from it as well?
So a couple of things here. Thank you for the question, Ian. That's a really good question, and it touches on a really big topic. So one, ThoughtSpot has been focused on delivering those questions and answers to non-technical users. But there is a larger aspect to what we're doing. So I'll give you an example. At a large financial services institution, rolling out self-service analytics to those non-technical users was a huge hit. But every line of business still needed these code-first operations, right? Where they had, analysts that were grabbing data from wherever they could. They get an email from a marketing provider that gave them data. They pull it all together. They do some analysis. They give you a lead score, and you go off and running, right? So we still had those types of operations that were code first. So, Ian, that's a long way of saying ThoughtSpot just recently added mode to it. So mode, if you're familiar with mode analytics, then you're familiar with Ben Stancil. But if you're familiar with mode, mode is that code first kind of analytics that lets analysts do their job, pull the data, create the data they want to it, run scripts, Python scripts or Python notebooks, SQL notebooks, R notebooks against all of those things. And now with the combination of ThoughtSpot, we're kind of covering that whole spectrum. And we're enabling you to say, take the insights gained from something like Mode with a code first and leverage it in a self-service way to those non-technical users. So sorry for the product rant, but
I think it was useful. Yeah, and he did, and it was sort of probably preloaded, but in fact, it was great because we just talked about the Mode acquisition in the past, and logic would say that that's obviously that's the reason for the acquisition, and a very, very good additional features to the overall. I think one thing I want to highlight there is the fact that the more we can contain a single use of metadata that's describing that data, that's servicing more business capabilities, data capabilities within your organization, the more business context you provide to it, the more single version of the truth, the more likely you'll get to the stage where you can train LLMs on, or your generative AI on your own data, and allow them to write the SQL for you, and start to get additional value, or make it into a product. So yeah, thanks for the question, Ian. And yeah, you heard it. Yeah, we're getting the latest from the roadmap from Sonny as well. So I think we'll go back to, we've gone off track a little bit. Let's go back to where we were. And I think our favourite topic, and something that there's more things that came out of the panel, and some great views. And I know you speak to Joe Reese a lot, and you work with Serge, and Serge on his book, and you're very deeply embedded in this world of data modeling. So should data modeling be centralized or decentralized, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's probably a false dilemma. I think you're going to end up with both. Do I need self-service analytics, or do I need this code first thing? I think you need both. And do I need data modeling that is centralized? There is a place for that depending on your organization. But I do think people need to be able to do it in the lines of business. A great example, again, we created enterprise data models, delivered those, and we had multiple lines of business, right? One's insurance, one's retail, and one's travel. And guess what? They then took the enterprise data, and on top of that, they added additional data modeling that represented the particular problem domain that they were solving. So I think you end up with both. But I think they're two slightly different types of modeling.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I think, and breaking down what would be centralized, what wouldn't. And I think this data contracts, I'm not saying it's new. I mean, the term may be new, but the approach that it's becoming more mainstream and much discussed much more. And I think it's bringing together that modeling world with the data quality world, and the associated governance piece. And everything needs a new name every now and then. And if it gets people who all come to work together, I really support the approach. So yeah, I think those contracts will need to be owned, but owned by someone. And I think this is where that everyone needs to have an owner. And I think if as long as there's each of the providers and each of the consumers that's managing those different contracts, you can still get to that decentralized vision.
Yeah.
But there's some aspects that are always going to have to be centralized, maybe to a line of business, maybe to how the data is captured. But the business you're running has a logical view of how it's run. So that's going to have to be centralized because it's your whole business.
Well, I think data in my world, I don't know. I'm not a data contracts expert. Get Chad Sanderson on the show. He will, talk your ear off about that because he knows more about it than just about anyone I've seen in this space at the moment.
Yeah, well, Andrew Jones is another good one.
No slight to Andrew Jones. So I will say though, I think the idea of data contracts underscores the challenges that the data engineering space has had all along, right? Which was what you were talking about. These capabilities, whether it's ingestion or data management, from a data governance perspective, these things are quality. The SLAs, our delivery. These have been challenges that we've had for a long, long time. And so contracts, I think, are starting us to say, let's formalize what these challenges are. Let's formalize our commitments to those and our interactions with this whole modern data stack and with these other providers. I mean, I don't know about you, but I had engineers wearing pagers, and we passed around the pager every week or sometimes every night. So who got up in the middle of the night or at 4 a.m. or on the weekends to make sure those data pipelines were ready, so I didn't get that call on, 8 a.m. on Monday morning.
It's an ownership, if you break it, you fix it. And I think, if you provide too much autonomy and there's no accountability, you're going to get those situations where people always get called up all the time, or we find out the next morning. So yeah. And I think shout out to Val, just put his one up there. I think central oversight will always stay. Too many chefs in the kitchen. And I think it's always in that organization, depending on the size of them, what autonomy you give. But it's the guardrails. I think if you put those guardrails in place, you can have your sous chef, you can have your dessert chef,
right,
pastry chef, or whichever different chefs you are, because you each know which part of the kitchen you're working in. But there's always going to be a head chef, I suppose, in any kitchen.
I think the thing here is, I was around a while back where it really was data centers or data, governance was all about control, right? And I think the pendulum has shifted to enablement, right? Like, how do I enable people? The days of having, DBAs or folks in our data centers just hold up their hand and say, no, you can't do this. No. They were the no's, right? And it took an act of Congress to get anything done. I think those are done. Those are gone. The governance now community has the obligation, and they're measured on how well am I enabling people to leverage this asset, not how well am I keeping them from the asset.
No, I think that's a good shout out, really. Enablement sounds much cooler as well. Not saying, and they have. I think they have been, and you can go back even for like the enterprise architects of the world. They're always seen as a blocker, saying, I've defined the company's architecture. You need to build this, and the people on the ground saying, well, no, we're just going to do it our way. So I think the data governance, rather than being seen as the police now, I think they are seen as the community support officer, or to help realize, doing it within the right guardrails. And I do think the generative AI hype, I've said this many times, is hypes don't always provide much value, and or the perceived value. I think for once, even if people aren't going to be able to get the dream of what they think they can get from generative AI at the moment, it's making them focus on the things that are going to help that. So it's the data governance, the data quality, the ownership aspect, the cataloging aspect of it, the modeling, logical, physical, operational, analytical, all that world coming together. Because as we talk to all those different strategies coming together, it's all about alignment and then alignment with all your data, and allowing generative AI with all its wisdom that we haven't got, and telling it not to hallucinate, just think what it can achieve. And it's a bit of a race at the moment to who's going to get there first. So,
did you happen to see 60 Minutes last night with the godfather of AI who just retired from Google? Right?
No, I didn't. What was?
So all of the viewers out there, check out 60 Minutes. There was it was actually 90 minutes. There was an additional 30-minute session on there, but really they had, and I can't remember his name, Trenton is his last name, the godfather of AI, just recently retired from Google. And it was really his take on how LLMs today, things like Bard, things like GPT-4, do understand what we are doing. They may not be conscious, but they have an understanding of what we are asking, because you can't get the question right without understanding it at some level. So, go back and redefine, what does it mean to understand? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be conscious, self-aware. it can mean you do understand the inputs, the domain of the problem, and then to be able to give a solution. And so I think that's really interesting. I also think Gen AI and LLMs very soon are going to write code better than we do, right? Things like the minutia of physical models, of physical data models. We may be relieved of having to deal with the minutia of physical data models, but we may be more focused on conceptual and logical models, right? That are the inputs that let, Gen AI do what it needs to do. Because imagine that case where, hey, I'm running something on Snowflake versus I'm running it on Databricks, or I'm running it on SAP HANA, or I'm running it on GBQ, Google BigQuery, right? All of those things may be slightly different from a physical layer, but logically you want everything to work exactly the same.
No, I think you're right. I've talked about, there's only a certain amount of businesses in the world, and we've seen in the past, and I've been called out with this, was whether we're repeating ourselves again. But normally getting people to agree is, and I think people will Google it, there's too many opinions. I think Chat GPT is helping people maybe come together on agreement, because they're all making the same. So it could be a good and a bad thing. But if, for example, if you're running an e-com business and you want to define what you could call all your attributes for your sales, or your different business lines, your product lines, or your sales funnel, or whatever, it's pretty similar to many organizations. And if everyone always starts with that, and you only change it where your business, your USP of your business, or your specialism. I think the more pipelines that can be pre-configured, already done that mix and match, that's maybe community validated, but generative AI piloted. And I like that term, pilot, because if we think of any science fiction film or anything out there, is everything, the technology is not always making the final decision. Well, maybe in a HAL 9000 he went a bit wild, but they're there to autopilot or co-pilot you. And Val will like this one with his love of aircraft. The airline doesn't, the pilots don't have to worry about every single piece of it. A lot of it's been automated. And I think we should think generative AI is that ability to help automate us getting to the end piece, which is providing the business performance. Until it's so good, then there's nothing left to optimize, and then we're all out of jobs maybe then.
Well, I think here too is, think about, there's two terms you should probably think about. Human in the loop, right? Of, hey, here's what's happening. And there's a human in the loop when these decisions or these actions are being taken place. And that could be, hey, before we actually execute it, some human has to evaluate this. Great examples are, radiology. Yes, they're looking at this, they're identifying, they're saying, hey, this is clean, or no, that could be a problem, right? But before it gets communicated to the patient, right, there's a doctor in the middle. There's a human in the loop that does that. But then there's also the concept of human on the loop. And this is a slightly different concept. This means I can pull the plug if something's going wrong, right? So we can change directions, we can stop the actions, but they are going to happen without human interaction. I just have the ability to slow them down or stop them.
Yeah. The kill switch, as it's called, probably.
Yes.
I just popped this up there. I mean, Gen AI can accelerate a line. I think that's right. It's all about accelerating a common view on something. We got something. There's one more from John as well. He said most code is 5% less business focused. So Gen AI can boilerplate the transformation. Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Yeah, I think, John, you're spot on. And here's one thing I think about too. With a lot of Gen AI, a lot of co-pilots, especially in code, I will not be surprised if within the next year you see a cottage industry just kind of emerge of companies like Chris's company that are actually fixing AI generated code, right? It's their specialty to fix AI generated code. We're not there yet where AI can just do this stuff without great assistance. And I think with its overuse, not understanding well enough, people are going to build pipelines, are going to build products, and somebody's going to have to come in and fix them.
I think so. And yeah, until we get to that business service driven approach, and rather than people going to code generators to go and generate bits of code, they don't actually currently quite understand why they're doing it or the part of the bigger picture. I think you're right. I think we'll get down the early days of modern data stack where people are given too much control too quick without understanding the bigger picture. And well, so understanding the fundamentals or what each of these things are doing. So Joe and Matt's book, the fundamental data engineering is a good place to understand that, which probably leads us quite nicely onto the next question we had, which was they use the term undercurrents. So what do we think the undercurrents are for data accessibility?
Oh, well, I'm not sure what you mean. What do we think the undercurrents? What's the backdrops to this?
So I think maybe another term, foundational pieces. So what things do we think need to be put in place to enable, and I think maybe data accessibility could have different levels of maturity, and what's needed to start, and what's the Rolls Royce is the expression we use. So what's your Mini and what's your Rolls Royce, your MVP to your main your big product.
So I will say, I just happen to have this sitting right next to me, The Ethical Algorithm. This is the latest book I'm reading on AI. And I think it's important. I think, so with that said, I think trust, you heard me talking about human in the loop, human on the loop. I think there's a level of trust that we have to have before we can move forward in a more, in a rapid way. Right. So having that trust in place, and right now our best option, I think, is human in the loop and some sort of other SLAs and contracts or automated monitoring to watch what's happening going on. But that trust is one of those undercurrents, one of those foundational things that you have to have in place. Another thing I think you need to have in place, and we may have been talking about this earlier, but there's data literacy, going on right now. But I think there needs to be AI literacy going on. And it doesn't have to be, we don't all have to be data scientists and build our own LLMs. I don't think that's the way where we're going. We need to understand what we're doing, how we're utilizing it, what the impact is, ramifications, right? What are the things we should be considering? When I think about data literacy, I see a lot of companies that are focusing on the technical side of data literacy, like I want everyone to know SQL. I want everyone to know Python. I don't know that that's going to get you where you want to go. What you really want is people to understand data and how to make an inference from the data that they're seeing, right?
I think you're right. It's that I refer to it as the art of the possible. And going back to that, you talk about the org structure of having that data department is having a strap line of what really what your data department does, and giving different teams the right example with the right narrative that helps them relate to it, for them to go, I know what I want now. I need you to do this because now now I know that this is possible. I can do all these things I didn't know I could do. And that encouragement or that excitement is then they're driving it. The business are on board. And the biggest challenge I've seen in this world is, I think the data department is, we already know you can do it, and we think, oh, come on, just do this, and we may haven't had the patience, may not be able to articulate it in the right way, or we may have bamboozled them with too much technology talk that we've alienated some people, and maybe they too don't feel open enough to ask questions to actually get that understanding. So yeah.
So I think what's happening here, Chris, too, is you're describing something I'm seeing in the marketplace. You said bamboozled them with these technologies and things. I do think there is a trend that is emerging, and that is data and analytics needs to become invisible,
Mhm.
right? For lack of a better term, it needs to be part of our products, part of what we're doing, but it's too upfront and it's too in your face that you have to have some level of expertise around this. So it needs to be every day. It needs to be invisible, and the insights, conversely, need to be more impactful. So I think the trend is data is becoming, or data and insights, data is becoming invisible, data and analytics, but the insights are becoming more impactful. And I think Gen AI gives us the opportunity to do that, to make that happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. So probably go back to a little, we don't focus on the products, and there's some interesting questions about where ThoughtSpot's taking that. So, without giving away the secret sauce. So, I mean, I know you've been probably one of the leaders in that space of turning search into insight. What's next? How you, or if you can share, or maybe give a date when you can.
Let me see. I don't want to get out ahead of my product team. They will definitely kill me, right? That they'll have my head. But I think the industry is going is what I talked about earlier. Is you have low code, things like ThoughtSpot. You also have code first, things like Mode, and I think you're going to see a consolidated suite of those features, right? Where things that are done from a code first perspective by an analyst can be consumed from a low code perspective, like in a self-service analytics type of tool like ThoughtSpot. So the mix of those is a really good combination. I know we will be doing that. I can't specify when the dates are, but it's going to be sooner than later, right? That's part of the value prop of what we're offering. What I also think, I could talk a little bit about some of the successes we've had at ThoughtSpot. Embedded analytics is the fastest growing area of analytics in the marketplace, right? Because it's what I said earlier. The insights need to be, the analytics needs to be invisible. So when that frontline user, that person in the store that's operating the store, can have analytics embedded into their workflow, and they can ask a question and get an answer without ever leaving their point of sale system or their scheduling system or whatever else, they can ask those questions, get those answers, and it feels natural, right? That is where the analytics is becoming invisible and the insights are impactful. So I think you'll see more and more embedded analytics. We just see so many people saying, hey, I want data and insights that I have internally. Maybe they're, departmental. I want them exposed to more people in the company, and I want some of this data exposed to my external customers. So, and if you think about that, I'll kind of lean on John Cook here a little bit. If you think about that from a product perspective, how do you make your product sticky? How do you make your product, increase retention in that product? Well, if it's natural and it's part of their workflow, when it comes time in stressful economic conditions, somebody's going to say, do I cut off this thing, this product where they only give me half of the solution, I have to go out here and do all this other work outside of it? Or do I use the one where I can see the business value directly in the product that I'm using? Oh, I'll stay with that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. And I've used that sticky term, and sticky can two ways. You want it sticky from an enjoyment factor, not because it's sticky because it's so hard to move away from it that you got like you're held hostage with them rather than that. And I think creating that environment where you don't need to leave, it becomes has more features, which leads me on to some slightly off topic. But observation I'm seeing in this world, and I think I predicted it or made some posts about it. I'm not always right, but on this one was consolidation. I think we're seeing the modern data stack became too fragmented, and you've seen over the year that's been around, tools have provided fragments of the capability, and then everyone's thoughts. That's why Snowflake and Databricks being examples of that. They've done more and eaten into other areas like SQL engines. They both can perform the same thing that the likes of Starburst did, apart from maybe on premise, but it's provided more features. Databricks has added a catalog as default, to its product. So I think we're seeing that with the data world as well, and I suppose an example of ThoughtSpot, moving into that Jupyter Notebooks area for that single place or better customer journey. They only have to go to the same place to service different types of requests, but from the same platform.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of maturity that happens in the space, right? And if where there are areas where we can make products better, you'll see some of that consolidation and that maturity in those. And I mean, if you think about Snowflake, just real quick, Snowflake came out, they said, we are the cloud data warehouse. They were all about cloud data warehouse. And then they said, oh, no, time out. We're not a warehouse. We're your data platform, right? So now we're a platform. And then they started adding, hey, now we can run all your data apps, right? So we got Streamlit. You can build apps within Snowflake. We can be your whole offering. I think Snowflake's headed down that route of saying, we're not just a cloud data warehouse or a cloud database. We're now this platform for data applications and integrations, right?
And I think it's the right approach. You can't go until you do everything straight away, because you're competing with everyone straight away. You've got more competitors. You've got more. It's better to have some friendlies on the journey. But I think that it's welcome. I think although consultancy company, it's great to have all this complication to help out with, but there's plenty for us to do. And the smaller number of skill sets needed, or small number of moving parts, the quicker it is to deliver that competitive advantage for your business. There's something I talked about on one of the chapters of the book, or an article we're doing, is what is a value of competitive advantage. And I think data enablement is accessibility is one of those. So I think the last point we've got was how we provide business insight in a fast-paced environment. And I think we can probably refer back to many things we've discussed today, but maybe to recap and on addressing that question, what would you say the main things that are going to help deliver that insight in a fast-paced environment?
Well, one thing everyone should know and understand, that a well-governed and well-modeled data set or database or data warehouse, having your data well-governed and well-modeled will go a long way to making you have faster decisions, getting to insights quicker. So I don't want to devalue, and I think that's what had happened earlier, is people devaluated modeling a data model. And now they've come back to say, okay, wait, we should be modeling our data so that we can consume it easily, quickly, and get to those insights quicker. So I think that's one thing. And the reason that's important is model data is what gives self-service analytics its legs and its speed. It's what lets business users be able to ask the next question. And there's a reason why you can't go to ChatGPT and say, hey, what should my next action be? Should I offer Chris this discount, or should I offer him that discount? ChatGPT can't answer those questions for you, and the data's too vast. And there's not enough, say, domain knowledge around that. But when you have a model, now you can fine tune that that LLM based on the data model that you have, and you get answers that aren't hallucinations and that are insightful and impactful.
Yeah. So
there is a value there. Well-governed, well-modeled data leads to faster transactions. Having the ability to have data literacy for non-technical users, not technical literacy, how to make inferences from data and how to take actions on those, that's going to get you there faster. And then, you heard me saying it before, like it's got to be less cumbersome. It's got to become invisible.
Yeah, I think collaboration was sprung to mind when this is that company collaboration, that you're all focused on the same things for your same business strategy, and understanding how each of those pieces play into it. And everyone wants to feel valued or know they're doing something that's worthy, because Otherwise, just coasting. Well, maybe there's some people out there, but I think most driven people, they're doing it for a reason. It's not just for the paycheck. That's a bonus, and probably necessity bonus. But you hope you're doing something, at least in the data world, that you're adding value to your company.
Well, let me say, I'll just say, no one should care more about your work than you do. And actually, no one does. No one cares more about your work than you do, right? And so if you're not caring about it, if you're not putting that into it, it's going to be reflected across the whole company. So across the whole data product. And so I just having that discipline to care about the work that you're doing. And part of that means modeling and enabling others. So sorry, I'll get off on that. I won't get off on that tangent.
No, I think it's good. It is, having passion in what you do, and I think we're all professionals, and we all want to do a good job. And I think maybe sometimes it's been frustration of environments you work in, and that's been maybe not helped with achieving the best value you could. But knowing what you're doing in the organisation, why you're doing it, and being able to. It's a team sport. I think I refer to it as data ops as being a team sport, but data insight is a team sport. We can't provide the insight unless we know what people are looking for in the business. We can't second guess that because we don't have the domain knowledge, because we're sat in our data department and going to these shows about other data people and slapping each other on the back and saying, you're all right. But the main people we need to get to is the business. And
right.
Having that ability to enable them, show them the art of the possible, show them what can be achieved and what we have achieved for other departments. I use analogy of the your business case being a legal case, and who you're convincing, and you want to win over your CMO on a particular case with them, but then you can go back and say, look what I have achieved. I can evidence it now. I can evidence the value I provided, and if I can explain how I could help you or show you what is art of the possible for your department, I can help the CFO. I can help the chief product officer or the chief revenue officer. We're going to help them be better at their role until the point that everyone is data literate or data trained at a younger age and learned by all the mistakes that we've made and watched all these shows, and eventually they may know as much. What we need is the generative AI to absorb all of the collective shows that we've all done and train it on that, and everyone will be thinking the same way.
Well, let me add. I know we have a few minutes, but let me just say, when it comes to data literacy and knowing this stuff, really making it fun to me is what gets people to be literate. And I think back of, I don't know about how your listeners, watchers, I have kids, right? When I wanted them to learn something, we just played. People learn by playing. And so when you can give them a playground, you can give them data to learn in and mess around with and play and experiment with, it makes it fun. And that's where they learn, right? So whatever you do, think about it as, hey, play really ingrains and makes people curious, right? And we want them to be curious. We want them to be able to ask the next question and figure out what to do. So make it fun and have a playground for it.
I think that's great. Gamify stuff. And Libra, if you're listening, this is linked to. We've got a conversation about this stuff. So creating somewhere that people can see the what can be done. I refer to them as sandboxes in the past, or sand pits or whatever, but an area that people can prototype, so you can play around. And the more you can make it more accessible to the people you have in your business, and they don't need to know Python and lots of other skills to go and play around with that data, I think you'll find business more engaged and requirements coming easier. In fact, I've got a minute left, but I was on my team internally, and we were talking about TOGAF and Archimate today, and although I don't say that you need to follow all these things, there's elements there. You just see that there's so many good things that have been done in the past, and if you adapt it to how we work nowadays and create that recipe, we can achieve much more, I think. So I think we're nearly on the hour, but before you go, the audience, if they want to catch up with you, want to see you, want to meet up, do you want to give a what you're up to?
So check me out here on LinkedIn. I'm in Chicago next week speaking at Snowflake. I'm in Toronto the week after speaking at Snowflake. So you can find me there. I will publish a couple of quick things here, adoption playbook and my most recent article on Gen AI and how it's impacting data.
That's a good article. I saw that one. That'd be great. And yeah, so next week, I hope it's all good going on, but we've got CJ from Coalesce and we've got Taylor McGrath from Rivery. So
nice.
We'll be carrying on our value themed. This one is simplifying, creating data pipelines to add that value. So Sonny, thank you very much for being on the show. Great discussion. Never short of things to say. We didn't get back on to discuss what we covered on the panel. So I'm sure. Well,
is Kimball dead?
Is Kimball dead?
We'll start the controversy. So
here you go. We're going to end on that bombshell. So maybe it'll be a post about Kimball being dead, and well, hopefully not the person, methodology. So we don't want to cause any rumors that would cause any confusion. But yeah, register for the show for next week. It's back on the Monday as well as this week. And yeah, thanks, Sonny. And
thank you.
I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you, everyone. Until next week. Cheers. Bye. Oh, here we go.